Joining us today is Alistair Hay, all the way from Donegal, Ireland. He is the founder of Emerald Guitars, and what makes his guitars unique is that they're made almost entirely of carbon fiber. Alistair, we're so happy to have you talking with us today. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. It's a pleasure to be invited.
So let's start at the beginning, because you credit your dad with giving you a lot of the interest and the ability and the creativity to make things back on the family farm. Is that right?
Yeah, well, when you grow up in a little rural farm in rural Ireland, out in the countryside, you kind of have to learn how to do stuff. And so my dad, he was one of those, I guess, farmer come designer come inventor, all those things all packed into one. And so he just taught me how to make things. And one of the things that I always see is you have to get an opportunity. So the opportunity he gave me was he made me a workshop when I was 8 years old. Actually, I'm probably younger. I was probably only maybe 6 years old when I think about it now. And he set up this little workbench and gave me a saw and a vise and some pieces of wood. And he just gave me a place to just make things. Now, I probably didn't make very much, but I got to, hammer nails into a piece of wood. And so that at that very, very early stage, I just learned to use my hands and watch my dad making things. So that definitely was the inspiration. And then he progressed from being a farmer into being a designer, and ended up becoming a designer in a farm machinery company. So yeah, his engineering design mind was a very natural thing there.
Where did the interest in polymers and I guess first fiberglass, where did that come from?
Well, the fiberglass part of the story happened with a boat sinking. Sometimes it takes a catastrophe to start something in motion. And if I take Emerald Guitars back to its very, very earliest origin, the earliest link is probably my dad's sailing boat sinking one day. And it was a wooden sailing boat. It sank, and he decided he was going to fix it himself. That's kind of the guy he was. He would always fix things. If he didn't know how to do it, he would learn how to do it. So he'd never worked with fiberglass before, and he decided he would learn the fiberglass process by fixing his own boat. And he did that, and then that became part of a business that he'd set up, making children's play equipment, children's swings and slides and go-karts and all that kind of thing. And so I was always very interested in the fiberglass side of our business. And I used to get involved in that on my summer holidays, and just any time that I had any free time, I would get involved in that. So that then led me further down the line of studying polymer engineering when I went to college, and then further into composites when I had an opportunity to go to the USA.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. I would not think that St. Louis would be the hotbed of building racing boats. I would think it would be closer to the water. But you ended up in St. Louis. Was it an internship or an exchange program?
Yeah, it was kind of an intern exchange program that I was involved in. And they took 18 people from the border regions here in Ireland, and between the border of some of us were from the Republic of Ireland, some in Northern Ireland. And they took 18 people from various companies and positioned us in other companies in the USA that did similar superior type processes. And I guess it was, to give us a grounding in the American way. And we did some business classes as well in the university there. And I just had the most incredible opportunity to go there and work in a Formula One race team. It was the Bud Light race team at the time, and just an incredibly inspiring place.
Maybe not the beer so much. I imagine your Bud Light's probably not your favorites coming from Ireland.
Well, back then I was only 20, so I wasn't even drinking beer.
So, how'd you segue into guitars from that?
Well, So I worked in that place, and the guy I worked for was called Bill Siebold. Bill Siebold holds the record of being the most winning powerboat driver in world history. And Bill kind of took me under his wing a little bit. And at that stage, Bill was, I think he was 52 years of age. He was the world number one, and his two sons were second and third in the world. And it was just the most incredible environment to be working in as a young guy from Ireland. And you find yourself in this environment of world champions. And Bill used to take me out to lunch with him every day, and I just got to spend time really closely with a world champion. And he was just the kindest and most inspiring person I think I've ever met. And I think that that set me on a path of wanting to do something special. You always have to have just one moment, one catalyst, one trigger that just sends you in an entirely different direction. And I remember talking to Bill about, how did you become a world champion? And I remember him telling me, he said, anybody has the ability to become a world champion, but you have to find what you can be a world champion at. And he said it's a combination of finding your abilities, your opportunities, and then what you can be dedicating the rest of your life to. And his words really stuck with me. And he said, you got to find your set of opportunities and circumstances that give you something that you can be a world champion at. I didn't know what that was until I tried to make a guitar. And I actually got the idea to build a guitar while I was there working in St. Louis, but I didn't try and build the guitar until 4 years later. But as soon as I did, I realized that was my thing.
How much of a guitar player were you at this point?
Not a very good guitar player. I was a mediocre guitar player, but just an absolute guitar nut. I was just such a guitar enthusiast. I can almost remember every guitar I've ever seen, and I don't have a great memory. But something about guitars just really connected with me.
Were you more of an electric or an acoustic player? Because your first guitars were electric, weren't they? That you built?
Yeah, well, I guess I was probably more interested in electric guitar and electric guitar music. But I also had an acoustic guitar, which became the basis of the first guitar I ever made. But yeah. So I suppose I came into the whole thing from a non-conventional angle, and I wanted to make an unconventional guitar, and it was definitely a different route into guitar making.
So you made a guitar for Steve Vai, and that sort of got you some notoriety. Is that how it sort of jump-started from there?
Yeah. So how it really started was in 1998. My mother had passed away actually from cancer, and that was a tough time, and I needed something to throw myself into, and I thought, well, this is the time now to try and build a guitar. And I did, and as soon as I did, I loved the whole process. I loved the design elements, the engineering elements. There's so many different aspects that have to work together. It has to hold up to the tension of the strings. It has to feel right. It has to sound right. And I just thought it encompassed so many different areas that I was excited about. And so I set about then trying to perfect that art, and I probably made 30 or 40 guitars, none of which ever left possession.
Electric guitars or acoustic?
Actually, all acoustic guitars at that stage. So the first guitar I ever made was acoustic, and I kept on that route. And I think I right from the start, I felt that with an acoustic guitar, it was a little bit more of a design challenge. An electric guitar, in its blunt terms, is a plank of wood with strings. It's it's more about the electronics when it comes to an electric guitar, whereas an acoustic guitar is more of an engineering challenge. So I went down that route, but yeah, the Steve Vai thing kind of came along out of the blue. I was a big Steve Vai fan, and it was actually when I first heard his music that 2 weeks later I went out and bought my first guitar. So he had a huge impact on me that way. And there was an album cover came out, for an album called the Ultrazone, and on that album cover there was artwork of this really bizarre biomechanical alien holding this weird guitar, and it was purely just a piece of artwork. It was never meant to be a real guitar. But I went to a concert and I saw Steve Vai performing with the backdrop of that album cover behind him, and he was dressed kind of like the alien, but had just a conventional Ibanez guitar. So I said, right, he needs the real guitar. So the very next day I went and set about trying to build that guitar. And lo and behold, I did.
And you got it to him.
And I got it to him.
How did that, tell us that story.
Well, so I started building the guitar and I sent a few emails to his management and could never make any connection. And then I went to the NAMM show, which is the big music show in LA. And Steve was there signing autographs at the Ibanez booth, and there was about 1,000 people around him. But then I happened to find him doing a signing at another little small booth. It was the NARAS booth, the National Recording Artists Association. And nobody knew he was there. I think it was unexpected that he turned up there. So there was like 2 people there with him, and I was able to walk right up to him, tell him who I was, and I remember telling him that I was going to build him the Ultrazone guitar, and that I had started building the Ultrazone guitar. And I think he laughed a little and probably thought I was just another one of the crazy fans. But he gave me an email address and said, if you ever finish it, send a picture to this guy. So I went back and I spent nearly 1,000 hours completing that guitar. Wow. And it was the best thing I ever did.
So you decided then to start your own company, Emerald Guitars, and what was the carbon fiber guitar market like at that point? We're talking about 2000s. Is that about the time frame?
Yeah, it was around about 2000 that we really created a company out of it. And at that stage, there was really one other company, Rain Song Guitars, that were building carbon guitars. So, if you sat down and you did a market analysis and did a study on it, you would never start building a carbon fiber guitar. It wouldn't be the right choice for business. But that really didn't stop me because I just was passionate about doing it. I just wanted to do it. It wasn't really a thought of, is this a feasible market out there for this product? But it was in early days of that type of product. There's some others that had been doing bits and pieces, but I suppose I didn't really think about, was I building a guitar that was for the carbon guitar market? It was more, I'm building a guitar and I'm going to be part of the guitar market. And that's taken a long time to penetrate into. But
your original design was more of a traditional looking guitar with the sound hole in the center. You had some business challenges and shut down for a brief period in mid-2000s. When you came back, is that when you altered the design of the guitar?
Yeah, so when I started out at first, I suppose I was looking at guitar design in how it had originally existed, and then trying to do that with a different material. So we were using relatively conventional guitar shapes and designs, but just using those and building them out of carbon. When I came back into it the second time, I kind of had a revelation that I need to embrace all the opportunities that carbon fiber gives you. Guitars are made a specific shape because of the materials that they've been made out of for the last few hundred years, and by the evolution of those processes and developments. So I thought, well, I kind of have to start this again. I need to start this from scratch and think about how you would design a guitar if you never knew about carbon fiber guitar or a wooden guitar design, and you were only thinking about building it from carbon. And that allows you an awful lot of freedom. And it scared me a little because you're going very much then into the dark. You're going with different shapes and different designs and with a different material. So that was a bit of a daunting one to bring out a new guitar and a new concept, new shapes. But the first guitar that I really did that properly on was the X20, which you have.
Yeah.
And it was our best-selling guitar by a long, long way. And what I discovered is, just when you can design something that's pure to your processes and your own design choices, I think people connect to it more. There was more of an understanding.
Well, there is a visceral connection between you and the folks who play your guitars. I mean, I'm on the guitar forums, and I know you get on there and you read it, but your fans are adamant about of why they love your guitars. And we've been showing this X20, but I really want to do a little show and tell here so they can see the weave and all that. So I'm going to pick this up here and number one, the sound really, it doesn't mimic a traditional wooden guitar, but they're very, very similar. I tend to think there's more separation in the notes to me than because of all the overtones of a traditional wooden guitar. Do you hear that as well, or am I just making that up?
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit more separation. I think the carbon fiber just gives a little bit more distinction to each note. And
so one thing that's unique and folks can see is that even though the guitar is primarily, almost entirely carbon fiber, you've put a unique wood veneer on these, and this is the one that I got, and this is a piece of Cocobolo. This is stunning. Even my non-guitar playing fans, and I will tell you, we had two folks from the studio, employees in here playing this guitar. As soon as I walked in with it, they were just captivated by it. When did that inspiration hit you? Because it really separates your guitars. They're just works of art.
Well, I think I did the first guitar with a veneer on it way back around about maybe 2005 or 2006. So I've been messing around with that idea for a long time. We started to do it much more intensely, probably from around about 2010. And really the motivation behind it is just to make something beautiful and distinctive. Carbon fiber has got its own beauty, but it's a woven material, so it has a degree, high degree of uniformity. And while that uniformity is great, I like to have things that have a little bit of unique fingerprint. And by adding in the natural wood veneers, it just allows each guitar to be just slightly different. It allows it to have a very warm and very natural look. And I really like that balance between the natural and the artificial in the carbon. And I think that the two things just really sit nicely hand in hand.
We've been showing the back of the guitar, and you can see that just gorgeous amber weave. And now another difference that folks, even non-guitar players, will notice, normally the sound hole is right here in the middle, and you moved it up to the upper bout. And I know the advantage for a guitar player is I can hear it so much better because it's projecting at me as well as out. What made you go to that design?
I suppose when I started to look at the structure of the guitar and started to think about why the sound hole was put in the position that it was, I actually couldn't find a whole lot of good reasons of why you would put the sound hole just right there. And I think a lot of it is just from tradition. It's been just handed on from generation to generation of guitar building that, you put the hole in the center. But there's been other places that people have put sound holes, like the F holes and different things. Mm-hmm. But I really looked at it from a structural point of view, and I thought, well, the idea of putting a hole right in front of the bridge of the guitar under the most structurally stressed part of the guitar didn't make a whole lot of sense. So we started to look at where we could put it into non-structural part of the guitar. So when you go up into that upper section of the guitar, it's not under tension from the strings or the neck. So you can be a little bit freer then. And I'd also messed around a little bit with some sound ports. So we had the hole in the center, but also a port on the side as well. And really it was just a progression of starting to refine that process, and then eventually came up with that design of it straddling both the top and the side. And we just found that gives the best balance between projection out to the audience and also to the player. And I think it's really important that the player gets a really good experience on the guitar, because I think probably for most of our customers, 90% of the time they're playing for themselves. You take somebody who maybe plays a couple hours a week in front of a crowd, they're probably going to play 10 hours a week in practice and enjoyment for themselves. So it's to me, it's a great thing if you can experience that guitar really well yourself.
Well, and folks would ask why carbon fiber, and it's really relevant here in Mississippi because those of us who play, the summers here are brutal. It's like playing in a sauna, and a traditional wood guitar is just not going to stay in tune, and the carbon fiber just doesn't move. In fact, I took this guitar off my wall this morning where it hangs, and brought it in here, had it in the case, had it in the trunk of my car, brought it in the studio. They pull it out, they hit a chord, and it's absolutely perfectly in tune.
Yeah, that's a huge benefit, a huge bonus. And I think for a lot of people, sometimes people come into the carbon guitar idea for structural reasons, and maybe had their other guitars that have split, or they're having problems with them moving and causing a lot of difficulty. So they start to think about buying a carbon guitar as an alternative, or something they might use as their performance guitar, but they leave their nice guitars at home. And that's why they buy their first carbon fiber guitar. And then they realize that they sound great, they feel great, and there's something special about them. And then they come back and they buy their second guitar and their third guitar. So sometimes the structure can get you to buy one, but it has to sound great to make you buy two.
Or 17. You're up to about 17 models now, I think I counted. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a lot of different variations on there. So yeah, if you feel the need to buy one of each, then I won't stop you.
Yeah, well, I think the Amicus is going to be my next one. I want to shift gears for just a second before we wrap this up. You have a non-traditional sales model as compared to most traditional guitars. So you can't walk in to a Manny's Music or a Guitar Center and pick up an Emerald. You purchase them directly from you in Ireland. What
Sure.
was why that decision?
Well, I think we started a long time ago down the concept that we don't just sell guitars, but we sell stories. And I like to think people want to connect with the product that they buy. They want to understand what it's about, why it exists, why it was made a specific way, where it was made. And that's really, really hard to tell through the regular dealer network. So I think we were a company that had a lot of stories. We had a lot of interesting things going on, and I just found it really hard to get that across. So I think it's about 5-6 years ago now, we made the decision that we would just start and go directly only. Initially we were doing some direct sale and then some dealer sales. And it was a pretty big move to decide to go directly only. But I think the revelation for me was I started to think differently about what a dealer margin is. And sometimes people separate the margin that's given to a dealer from actual marketing and sales cost. And what I started to do was I started to think about the margin I was given to a dealer and think, well, actually, no, that's a marketing cost. That's the cost to get that guitar from me into the hands of a customer and to tell our story as a company. And when I had that revelation, I realized, well, actually, if we had that margin and we had that marketing budget, we could probably tell our story a whole lot better than what they can, and become a whole lot more personal. And that's really where our success has started to come from. Whenever we did that and we pulled back into selling only directly, we found that we had a much closer connection with our customers. We got to know our customers personally. We got to know their needs personally, which in turn has helped develop the Emerald product line. It's very much been a two-way street. When you have a dealer network, there's a layer of barrier between you and the customer, and it's much harder to get that feedback or get that understanding of what works or what doesn't work. Also, if there's a problem, we have this direct connection, we can solve that problem, and then we know about the problem. Whereas sometimes those problems are lost in among the mix, in a dealer. And So for us, it's just been a much closer way to work with the customer. And the other thing that we looked at was our customers are all around the world. It's very hard to develop a dealer network that's wide enough to really service everybody. So if your local Emerald dealer happens to be 200 miles away from you, then we're probably better positioned to send it directly to you than that dealer to do it. So it's been a really rewarding process. And a really successful process for us. It's really worked well.
We teach our student entrepreneurs that because of the internet and there's so much information you can get on the products, and the real differentiator these days is that connection you have with the product. One of the things that we actually talked about in class is how brilliant your weekly video series is of your shipping video, where if you order an Emerald guitar, it takes a little bit of time until it's ready and they ship it out to you. And each week, Alistair is in the shipping room, and he picks up each guitar and he says, "Hey, this one's going to Jeffrey in Mississippi," and he spends a few moments talking about your particular guitar. That is, number one, it's free, so it's very cost efficient. But it is such a brilliant way to connect with your customers. Did you know that going in when you started doing the shipping videos that folks would get, it almost became must-see TV for those folks who love guitars, truly?
Yeah, well, it was never intended. It was inspired by one day I walked into the shipping room and there was a row of guitars that were there, and I thought, wow, this is really cool. When you see all those guitars sitting there and all the different addresses that they're going to. And again, it's back to that being personal. We're not just sending boxes off into the ether. We're sending a guitar to Jeffrey in Mississippi, and that actually it's good for the customer, but it's also really good for us as a company. The guys in our production team, when they faithfully watch the shipping video every week, and before they might have done their part of the process and then the guitar disappeared, now they actually get to see the finished guitars, and they get to hear me talking about those finished guitars, and then they get the comments from the owner who is seeing their guitar on there. And so for our team that are building the guitars, it connects them right back to the person that's actually purchasing it. And and that's a very important thing for us, that we're not just building guitars. Everyone is built for somebody, and that's an important thing.
Well, there are lots of great takeaways from your business that we can share with our young entrepreneurs, and I appreciate you sharing your story. I would ask you as we close, what advice would you give? We've got over 100 startups here at our university in Mississippi. They're worth over $17 million. We're awfully proud of them. But you have been there, and what parting words of wisdom would you give to them, kids who are just starting out and have a dream, perhaps similar to yours?
I think find what makes what you do unique. It's easy to get lost in the crowd, so you have to find your unique differentiator. For us, it's many things. We're building carbon fiber guitars, but we're doing it also in a unique location. And then find a story. Find your story and tell that story. And for us, it's building one of the world's most advanced guitars, but doing it in the countryside in Ireland. Right now I'm in a 200-year-old thatched roof cottage, and we're selling a little bit of us. This is where we are, this is who we are, and we like to tell people that. So find your story and find your unique differentiating factor.
Well, Alistair, as an educator, I want to say thank you so much for sharing your story, and as a guitar player, I want to say thank you so much for building Emerald guitars. We sure appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's a privilege to be able to share that.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.